Hello and welcome to FinextraTV. I'm Hannah Wallace, and joining me in the lead up to Innovate Finance Global Summit 2024 is Janine Hirt and Louise Smith from Innovate Finance. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you so much, Hannah.
It's really good to have you on, and not long now until Innovate Finance Global Summit.
No.
Counting down the days.
Yes,
So
exactly. And we're very excited to say that Finextra will be returning as media partners. And jumping straight in then, the theme of the event is the next generation of fintech and shaping the next decade as well. So we'll certainly be talking about the future of fintech, but first I think it'd be good to reflect on the past year and talk about the investment landscape, because that's the focus of the event as well. So Janine, could you kick us off with some challenges, success stories?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I think the landscape in 2023 was, as expected, a pretty difficult one. And I would emphasize that's not just for fintech. Looking at any high growth companies in any sector, we saw some challenging times. And that was the same for financial innovation. But there are some positive components to that story for the UK. So globally, we saw investment into fintech reach 51 billion, and that is down from the 99 billion from 2022. But the UK still had 5.1 billion US dollars of investment coming into its ecosystem. That positions us second in the world, once again, behind only the United States, and once again ahead of all of the rest of Europe combined. So some very positive components in terms of really emphasizing the strength of our ecosystem and the continued momentum that we have going forward as well.
All right, there's a very positive start, Lou. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, of course, we understand the challenges of 2023, and also those headwinds have continued into 2024. But there's also success in there as people start to, particularly as we go through the rest of 24, as they start to grow. I mean, as Janine said, we are still the place for unicorns. We are also the place for some of the most amazing fintechs, entrepreneurs and leaders in the industry. And I think we forget that sometimes. I mean, you look across wealth management, asset management, payments, an area close to my heart, which is for obvious reasons. And also you look at the challengers, they continue to look at opportunities with a focus in mind. And I think the only thing I'm seeing that's probably slightly different is purpose and focus is much more at the forefront. So how do we deliver better? How do we make banking services more accessible? How do we focus in on vulnerability, particularly through this period? And how do we actually make sure that through that period, there's opportunities for the industry to continue to grow? So there's always success within the challenges, I think, Hannah, to be honest with you.
Definitely. And talking of success stories, Innovate Finance recently launched the first Unicorn Council for UK Fintech. So that's big news. Janine, perhaps you could tell us a bit more about that. What does that entail?
Yeah, absolutely. And we were so excited to launch this because ultimately we are bringing together the CEOs and the founders of the most exciting, highest growth fintech companies across the UK to really ensure that we're removing any barriers to growth, that we are making concrete recommendations to government and to policymakers about what has to happen to not only help our fintechs to scale, but also to keep our fintechs here in the UK, to keep them here as they grow, but also to keep them here as they list as well. So really excited to bring that group together. We've got some fantastic entrepreneurs leading the way, and very much looking forward to working with whoever may be in government in the coming year to ensure that we continue to be the best place in the world to build a fintech business.
As Janine reminded me yesterday, it is important. It is Unicorn Fintech Council for very obvious reasons. This is probably one of the most exciting things I think the team have done, and fantastic leadership from Janine and Ryan Mendy from Zilch, because these are entrepreneurs who represent a significant part of our industry, both in their scale, the capital that they've managed to raise, and the skills and talent they manage to attract into their organisations. The co-chairs, to start off with, represent three of the most exciting businesses in our industry. But that's not all. When you then look at the people who sit around that table, who will look at how do we actually create the playbook for people behind them? How do we actually talk to the regulator? How do we attract those skills, that talent into the UK? For me, this is probably the first time I'm seeing something that could really shift the industry to a completely different level. I spend a lot of time with startups, particularly in the accelerator labs like Oxford University, Creative Destruction Labs. And that could directly benefit those startups who are looking to be the next high growths. And I was talking to one today, a fantastic organisation who look at fraud, security, that type of area. And they want to move here to London and the UK from other parts of Europe.
Interesting.
And they're already looking at how could we be in the middle of this, because it feels different. Now, if you've got a startup telling you that, and you've got a bunch of entrepreneurs who've already broken through that unicorn barrier, for want of a better phrase, who are willing to share, that for me is probably one of the most exciting things I've seen for a long time. And it will also be tangible difference. So fantastic work from Janine, who blows me away with how she continues to push this industry, and Ryan and these guys who came up with that idea, and it's live.
Yeah, watch this space.
It's really exciting, but it's the Unicorn Fintech Council.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. An inspiring note to lead off from. And another area I really wanted to discuss is this idea of the Fintech manifesto.
Yeah.
Janine, I know you wanted to talk about that as well.
Yes, well, I mean, I think everyone's looking ahead to 2024 with the mindset that, why? I mean, not only, I think
What's happening, Janine?
what's happening? Well, not just in the UK, we were talking about this earlier, but we've got, I think, one of the biggest years for democratic elections ever. So there's going to be a lot of change all over the world. We're probably most likely going to see an election here in the UK. So what we've done is essentially gone out to our ecosystem. Our brilliant policy team has gone out to speak to all of the players within the community, said, what do we need to ensure that fintech continue going forward? And can we create essentially a roadmap for whichever government might be in power for the coming months and the coming years to make sure that we stay at the forefront of both financial services and financial innovation more broadly here in the UK. So we have put together this manifesto. There's essentially 3 different components to it. The first one is around the fact that we believe we should, in the UK, be the world's first smart data economy. But that means we have to move from open banking through to open finance, through to open data, then through to smart data, and ensuring that we have that pathway forward, bringing together government, regulators, and industry to get there is really critical. The second component is that we should, in the UK, be the safest place for businesses and consumers to use digital finance. And that means building on our strength on the regulatory technology side of things, on the legal, on the regulatory framework, all critical within that scheme too. And then finally, we also think we should be at the forefront of adopting new technology in financial services. So looking at trends, emerging technology, bleeding technology, areas like artificial intelligence, like digital finance, we have to make sure that the UK is approaching regulation of this arena in a proactive manner, but also that once again, the collaborative effort between industry and government and regulators is happening, because we've got a huge opportunity at the moment to position the UK at the forefront, but we've all got to be moving in the same direction to get there. All right.
I agree. It sounds easy though, doesn't it? I mean, we've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't heard of open banking? Who hasn't heard of open finance, embedded finance?
Yeah.
And they are easy things to say. They're actually quite tricky to do. But as Janine said, I think this is something that we can lead on. But actually think about the outcome of us leading on it.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to why do we do what we do?
Yeah.
And fundamentally, it's how do we make financial services more accessible to more customers, but actually more immediate and at the right time. And I think this is an area that we can drive behind. The challenge is also going to be not just in doing that, but obviously ethically, how we collaborate.
Absolutely.
But the narrative we use. So I think we've all been in panels and conversations about generative AI, and it's a language reserved for the few. And one of the things that I've seen the team really adopt is how do we make it more accessible? Because the opportunity of generative AI, the opportunity of smart data and connectivity is actually how do more people use it and understand it in a way that makes sense. And obviously, as I've already said, ethically. So I think there's a narrative that we have to create around this that people can start to step into and move through what does that actually mean for me. So I'm really excited about the work that the team are doing on this, but I think there's a lot that we can do to actually get ahead and quickly.
That's really interesting, and tied into all of that is really the importance of skills, talent, culture and governance across the fintech landscape. So I'm interested to hear how those areas are being honoured in the IFGS agenda. So Lou.
For me, this is an area that we're in danger of stepping backwards if we're not careful. It's a deeply interesting area that people feel passionate about. And for me, we've got an opportunity across financial services to attract diversity and talent in its broadest and deepest sense, not just in organisations, but how boards represent the face of the communities they serve and the people who operate within those organisations. We've been doing some work with one of our partners. I don't want to steal the thunder for IFGS, because it is, again, one of the most exciting pieces that we've done that has really looked at what does the governance and board agenda look like in a diverse sense, and why. And we mustn't forget the why. Obviously, it makes moral sense, but it's also the most sensible thing to do around commercial, about not leaving anybody out of the room, about ensuring that we bring our teams and our people with us, and we can continue to attract the best skills and talent into the UK. I do a lot of work with Tech Nation and the Treasury actually around skills and the talent agenda. And we need more people who actually think about data, digital, and I mean digital is an overused word as well, but product-led technology organisations. And we need to attract that thinking in. And particularly when you start to look at new and emerging technologies, if you don't have that deep and broad sense of diversity, you're leaving somebody out of the room. We have enough lessons, particularly with things like facial recognition, where we've got that wrong. And we cannot get that wrong when you start to look at AI, smart data, connected ecosystems, immediacy and transparency. So I'm really excited that we've looked at the board. I sit on boards. Boards have a deep accountability now to look at culture in organisations. So I think this is going to be something where we can really say, how are we really doing? What more can we do that is beyond the tick boxes and beyond the Junes and the Mays and the Aprils and go, are we really making a difference? So I think this is something that we will continue to focus on, and it's an area that I will continue to work on, because I think this is the one that can actually also mean that we continue to stay ahead as an industry.
Wonderful. That's a really inspirational note to end on as well. And we can't wait to sink our teeth into the agenda and join you at IFGS. But we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.